Uh,
Hello, this is Greg Smalley on Pod 366, a Weird Movies podcast, joined this week by Robert Hubbard.
Hello again.
And later in this episode, we will be joined by our special guest, Cory McAbee, which is why Robert is on. He has a deeper knowledge of the Cory McAbee extended universe than I do. But first, we're going to go through, as we usually do, the week's new releases that may be of interest to you, some of which you may have been waiting for anxiously, and some of which you may have never heard of. And among the films that you may have heard of and have been waiting for is this one to my left. Can you see it, Robert? Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Dream scenario with a picture of Nic Cage being very middle-aged and frumpy, raking leaves. I've seen the trailers for this. This looks very interesting, and I guess we kind of get Nic Cage back in his more in his restrained mode rather than sort of like the Nicholas Uncaged that we've gotten the last few projects.
It's that he can do both. Because he got a lot of praise for a movie called Pig, where he was very restrained, and he got a lot of praise from critics for that. And I think he's going to get some outside chatter for nomination for Dream Scenario.
Oh yeah, this kind of like seems to be more in his adaptation mode. And looking at the writer director for this, Christopher, I'm gonna mangle the name. He's from Norway, and he actually did a feature that also kind of got some buzz, called "Sick of Myself." I think Showtime Networks had picked it up, so isn't showing periodically there. That got some interesting buzz, and I'm assuming it just kind of led to this. Kind of sort of.
Same guy wrote it.
Same guy, writer director. I believe he did the same for Sick of Myself as well. I don't know, this looks interesting, and also Ari Aster was one of the producers on this, so it's kind of like, from judging from the trailer, it's kind of maybe like a darker version of kind of fair, like everything, everyone all at once, and kind of the aesthetics of Eternals, the Gondry project with Jim Carrey.
Eternal. Yeah. So I was going to say, in case anybody isn't aware, the simple premise of it is that Cage is just this sort of average kind of loser, maybe a slightly loser of a college professor who suddenly starts appearing in everyone in the world's dreams, and therefore becomes a sort of instant celebrity. And I guess
then things start to turn. So I don't know what else. I'm really kind of everything coming out this fall. This is something I'm really looking forward to seeing. So, and I guess time for like Nick. I guess to bring. I guess after so many sympathy for the devils in Willy's Wonderland, great as they are in their own way, it's kind of nice to have him back more in the fold, and I'm wondering if it might lead to another nomination for him, possibly.
Yeah, as much as I think fans enjoy the him going wild on screen and the Gonzo performances, he is kind of getting typecast for that. And I think he probably enjoys the chance to do I'm putting myself in his head, obviously, but to do a project like this where he can show that I don't have to be, the crazy guy all the time. I can be a normal actor, if you'll just cast me.
Yeah, like I said, and I'm looking forward if he did, like if he would kind of do more roles like this, which it seems that like he does come back. So he does come back every so often. I guess depending on the quality of the projects as well. So,
and
looking for.
And he can act normal in weird movies like he did with Adaptation, one of his best performances. So, but he wasn't super crazy in that. So. Anyway, so yes, we're all looking forward to Deep our Dream scenario. And just out of curiosity, Robert, do you get out to the actual theaters much to see movies?
Starting to. I have yet to see the Scorsese film. Just like blocking out time when I sit still because it's like close to 3 hours.
Yeah.
God, what did I go see in the theater? Last Voyage of the Demeter. And I have been kind of making out to like the small micro cinemas. So we just finished up a film series programmed over in Kansas City. So yeah, looking at getting back out into the theater, into the large theaters again. But yeah, again, depends on the quality. If there's stuff that's actually worth going to see, because it's like, in my case, I'm trying to work through the backlog of discs and computer files that I've accumulated over the years, and sometimes it's just sort of like, well,
I know. I mainly ask because so streaming is becoming so easy that people, even cinemaphiles are spending a lot less time out in the actual theaters, and it's so much cheaper as well. So I try to go to the movies once a week, and it's a hefty portion of my my recreation budget there.
it is an effort. It is an effort, especially now when tickets are like costing upwards of $20 a ticket, depending on the theatrical experience, and and just ease of comfort. It's because I can kind of go binge through double, triple features like in an afternoon or an evening, and kind of be sure that it's definitely all going to be stuff that I might like, or at least will be interesting. It's more of crapshoot going out to the theater, but that's just my.
But everything else on our list will be something you can enjoy at home. So let's get to it. So this one, this is called The Cursed. It's a series on Showtime. It just sort of popped up in my feed probably a couple days ago. By chance, I caught this. And so it's a Showtime series. It's got Emma Stone, and it's from the Safdie. I think it's just from one of the two Safdie brothers, if I'm not.
Well, I think it's just one of the Safdie who appears in it. I guess it's just Benny Safdie. I'm not that. I know of them. I'm not that familiar with it. The main person behind this seems to be Nathan Fielder, I guess, who did like a show called Nathan for You on HBO. I'm vaguely familiar with it. I haven't seen it. And with The Curse and with Emma Stone, and with this, it seems to be it's a series about these these influencers, sort of like on the shows you see on like cable, sort of like the house people, like remodeling your house and DIY, something along those lines, and kind of a satire is sort of a satire in that world. But then then something happens where they're affected by these events. I guess by the titular The Curse. I don't know. It's very oblique. It looks interesting, but it's still kind of like how it's described as like very oblique. So I
Everybody,
think worth a look.
go ahead.
I know. Well, like, worth a look. Like I said, with the Safdies, I I'm familiar with their work. I've seen some of. Uh, I saw Good Times and I saw some of Uncut Gems, which frankly I didn't like. It's a good performance, but I just did not like their work. So, but yeah.
So,
And this, sorry, go ahead.
the critics I've seen are being sort of they're saying pretty much saying that the finale, the season finale, is insane and refusing to give any details for fear of spoiling it. But it's getting, they're comparing it to, I've seen a lot of comparisons to Twin Peaks. So apparently, like, it's a mixture of what the kids call cringe comedy, with long, awkward pauses and people being, I guess, socially appropriate, and mixed with horror. And then in the final episode, apparently they pull out a sort of David Lynch style finale for it. And I do believe it's been greenlit for a second season, because I saw a second season listed somewhere. So I think I'm gathering that they're going to end on some kind of cliffhanger type thing that will be expanded upon in the second season. So it's getting, I think that's maybe how it's getting a lot of Twin Peaks comparisons, but I think it seems kind of intriguing. I won't have much of a chance to watch it though, because I don't have Showtime. So
well, there are ways to
there are ways around.
There are ways for it to be viewed, and I'll leave it there. But yeah, this type of horror program, I know Stars has the Courtney Cox series Shining Veil, which is kind of more. I think the supernatural element is a little bit more overt than what's a curse, but it's sort of in that vein where like the comedy is like very is very cringy. But that seems to be working well, since I guess they're in their second year. They're in their second year. This one, like I said, I try not to find out too much about it before it shows, but everything that I've been able to find on it so far, it's just very, I don't know. I said it's for me, it's hard to get a handle on, but it's intriguing, and I'll definitely kind of watch the first couple episodes, and if it's great, I'll kind of like write it out to the end, especially if they're making that Twin Peaks comparison.
Yeah, I'm going off of, like you say, it's not easy to get a handle on what it's going to be like, but I'm going off some quotes that I've copied down here from Entertainment Weekly and the Daily Beast. The weirdest, most unforgettable show of 2023, and a masterclass in incredibly strange TV. So that sounds promising.
Oh, yeah, it's incredibly strange TV, I guess is kind of a pull, but I don't know. We'll see. Whenever anybody mentions it's like Twin Peaks, and to me it seems there's only one person who really does Twin Peaks type material well, and that seems to be David Lynch. So,
well, it's just the touchstone people pull out. Like whenever they see a strange black and white movie, they always say, "Oh, it's like Eraserhead," even if it's nothing. Eraserhead, which our next guest will be able to speak to that comparison. But let's go on. I don't know. Do you recognize this still, Robert?
Looking it up, it is a still from a movie entitled Screwdriver, which seems to be a psychological thriller, as what the president said. Also by a first-time filmmaker, Cairo Smith. And as to what it's about, it seems like this woman who I guess is in the midst of a divorce goes to visit a school friend of hers, and and his wife, and for support. And it seems that things don't, aside from being your normal visit to a school or normal visit to a friend, turns out to be a lot heavier than that. And along ways that pretty much everybody's kind of familiar with, like the title Screwdriver, which is featured prominently in the trailer. So
we will have a trailer posted. So yeah, we don't know much about it other than just the trailer and a slight synopsis. The director has never been seen before. It's low budget. It's going straight to VOD. Caught my interest. They kept emailing me about it, and it always said the surreal psychological thrill. So I said, okay, well, let's. From, like I say, from the trailer, you don't get much of a sense of it. There is some kind of maybe guided visualization or hypnotism in it that's featured in the trailer, which may have a role. You can tell, I think, that it is low budget. It doesn't seem to have a lot of locations. It doesn't seem to have a lot of high production values. They try to hide that. But what it does have is, I thought for a project of this type of budget, I thought the acting looked pretty good, which can often...
going from the trailer, it is low budget, but it looks well. It looks well done and well shot, as you can kind of tell from the still. The acting, I didn't see anything that would kind of like make me question. So it seems everybody involved, I guess, does pretty well. I guess when they start to call it a surreal psychological thriller, and I'm just kind of like wondering where the surreal kind of comes in, because
that's a phrase or a word that gets used kind of loosely.
Yeah. I guess just going from the trailer, I guess if surreal is sort of like your main character kind of like crying, and then like stalking around with a screwdriver in hand for some reason. I guess at some point that was surreal.
The story the guy tells has in the trailer, which you can watch, so it's not a spoiler, has a little surreal element. He tells her to imagine she's in a mausoleum, and she goes and she sees a cat, and the cat speaks to her and says, I forget exactly what he says, but he says, he's coming for you and you'll be tempted in 24 hours. And there's a little bit of, like surrealism there.
That's definitely surreal. I'd probably have been more surreal if we like saw it depicted rather than being told. But that's, again, that might just be me.
We should see. They might not have had the budget for a talking cat, so talking cats don't come cheap. But anyway, Screwdriver, we really have no idea. We'll see if we check it out on VOD. It arrives November 10th, which may be the day you're watching this. And that's that.
Go check it out. Tell us what you said. Yeah. Tell us what you think.
Do our work for us. The last two are just a couple of Blu-ray re-releases. I think I'll do them out of order so we can talk, because we might talk about the second one longer than the first one. So it's The Perfume of the Lady in Black, which is a sort of, this is from Raro Video, and this re-release looks no different than their last release, which was like 10 years ago. Has the same features, which is a commentary and a short film from the director Barilli. However, the old pressing, I think, had gone out of print, and they were kind of expensive. So now you can get it for $20. So it is a giallo in style, but it is the story is occult and supernatural, which is not normal giallo. Normal giallo is just, kind of a stalker and a mystery. This is got witchcraft in it, and it's sort of maybe some Rosemary's Baby feel to it.
Flavored. So giallo, more flavored giallo than just
have you seen it, Robert?
No, this one is I've heard of the title several times as well, with the leading actress Mimsy Farmer. Haven't seen much of the work that she's in. I'm just kind of like in last year started kind of getting more into giallo, so this is one, or giallo adjacent. So this is one I have not come across yet, but since it's now out on Blu-ray, eventually I will get to it. And the Raro Video, and I guess they had some deal with Kino Lorber to kind of for these reissues and also kind of get it out to a wider audience, because Kino's been releasing a lot of other Italian films of the mid to late 60s, early 70s. I just picked one up, which is out of our purview in this discussion, but the Blu-ray they released called Star Pilot, which is more of a science fiction / satire, but also, but I guess they did like a restoration commentary, and so it seems that there are more, I guess, in the rare line, doing more of these reissues. Italian exploitation film is something I just barely have a taste of. So it's interesting to kind of be able to get into more of that. So
yeah, this one I would say, it's if you're into horror but not giallo, you'll probably like it. If you're into giallo but not horror, you'll probably like it. It's got the ending, as I recall, was quite memorable. It is a bit of a slow burn up until that point, all atmosphere and sort of very subtle disturbances and things, but it builds to a pretty spooky and shocking climax. So yeah, I would I can recommend checking that out. I considered putting it on the list or nominating it for the canon because it is weird, but I just thought, I don't know. It didn't stand out quite enough, but it is in the general sort of purview of films that we like to watch.
Okay. I'll definitely make an effort to try to see it in the next couple of months. Or
sure, put it on if you're anything like me, you've got a list of movies to check out that's about 1,000 titles long, so just pack it on.
Several lists. And also, like I said, I haven't really seen very much of Mimsy Farmer. I think the only other thing I've seen her in was I think Four Flies on Grey Velvet, the Argento film. There's another film called Road to Salina. I haven't seen, but I've heard of. Also recently reissued. So, and she's kind of like been like this. I won't say cult actress, but there is like there is a small cult around her. So, and so from what I've seen, she seems to be a pretty good actress. So
yeah, she's very good in this. This this is definitely a feature for her, and probably more of a good meaty role. Although there is nudity required, as you would expect. It's it's a good strong role. Other than that, she's not just like a sex object, eye candy out there. She really has a character, and it's about her, and it's about it's about being a young woman on your own, a young single woman trying to be a professional on your own in the world of the early 70s and all the anxieties and fears that it means to be a woman on your own without any protection. So,
well, sounds like Mary Tyler Moore show, just with more murder.
With more murder, yes.
You're gonna make it.
So we finally close with a movie that is out again, reissued on a disc. There's nothing really different or special about this reissue. I don't know the company that's putting this out. There are competing releases of it, but it gives us a chance to talk about it, which is always fun, which is the Marx Brothers Duck Soup. So do you have any thoughts just to start us out, Robert?
Oh my God. I remember seeing this several times, I think in a theater, and then like on Turner Classic every so often. What can I say? I don't think I can call it the best Marx Brothers films. It's certainly my favorite. It's certainly my favorite film. I like, as kind of like a anti-war satire. It's not quite, probably not quite as sharp as it used to be. But there's still a couple still kind of sharp in the tooth, especially towards the end, and the Tuar musical number. So, other than that, about the film, I don't have much to say other than if you haven't seen any Marx Brothers films, this is a good introduction. Some can probably they can probably point you to some of the other earlier films of theirs, but this seems to be a favorite. It's certainly my favorite. A little bit as to who put this out. It's Universal. Back in 2016, they did a release that had it was called the Marx Brothers collection, that had several of the other films, which I guess is kind of still available, but yeah, you're gonna have to. It's kind of pricey if you look for it. It looks as though they'll be reissuing all the films. This one had, as on the first release, has a commentary by Leonard Maltin and a Marx Brothers historian, as it says, Robert Bader. And it also has like a documentary that was on the collection, 80-minute documentary called Marx Brothers Kings of Chaos. That should give you a good overview of their career. So
I hope that's true, Robert. However, I'm not 100% sure, because on this listing on the Amazon list, did you look it up on a different site? Because it's listed on Amazon as coming from an outfit called Allied Vaughn.
Yeah, I saw the Amazon listing, and then I went to Blu-ray.com. That's a little bit more
good.
I guess reliable in terms of information, and seeing on the upcoming releases, kind of going from there. And as it seems, since this is the one that's being released this week, it has it as like being from Universal, and again, like reissue, kind of parting up that earlier collection. So we may see the other. I can't recall if I have seen like other Marx Brothers films like in the last few months. If not, probably look forward to seeing more of the films out over the next year or so.
Okay.
I don't. Sorry. Other than that, just highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it and you're into comedy, why haven't you seen it yet? You have no excuse now.
So I agree that it's the best Marx Brothers movie I'd say by a wide margin. The Marx Brothers, I think they tend to be remembered mostly for one-liners and skits that are spread across all sorts of different movies. So like the mirror skit and I shot an elephant in my pajamas, and they're all spread over many different movies, but Duck Soup is kind of really good from start to finish. And as Alfred Eker pointed out on our website on his review, although this movie was a flop on release, it's kind of an improvement over the rest of the ones or the earlier ones, because for one thing, they stopped. They used to have these long musical instrumental sequences where Harpo would play his harp, and they didn't put one of those in, and those scenes would kind of bring the movie to a screeching halt while he played, and then they'd come back up. But this one's all comedy, and once they get into the war, it is truly a crazy movie, just sort of surreal humor all the way around. And I think this is one of the movies that Salvador Dali probably saw that made him want to collaborate with Harpo Marx on the movie that never got produced, Giraffes Horseback Salad, which is something definitely to look. You can find that screenplay, unproduced screenplay, has been published as a graphic novel, and I highly recommend tracking that.
Yes, that's something where I looked that up, and it's just sort of like along in the lengthening list of things that you wish had gotten made, and it's just like also one thing about my knowledge of the Marx Brothers isn't that strong. I've seen some of the earlier films. My understanding is that, like in the earlier films, they started out on vaudeville. So pretty much those early films, they were just kind of straight from stage to film, and reproducing the stage show, which is kind of like some of those features, like the musical numbers and such. By the time they did Duck Soup, it was kind of conceived more as just a film. It's not kind of transposed from the stage show. So it seems like that it works a lot better. You said the bit in the mirror. You have the famous bit in the mirror with I guess with Harpo and Groucho kind of marrying each other, and being able to do more of the surrealist stuff later during the war. So
yeah, that's sort of why it's so surprising that this was a flop on release, because today, like I say, it looks like their best movie, and I'd say by a wide margin. Like the other movies you remember certain skits from certain one-liners, and this one is just start to finish a complete movie. Also, after this movie, this is the last movie with Zeppo in it. They dumped Zeppo after this, which was probably an improvement, because Zeppo was just a straight
needed straight man. So
and they didn't need one, because they had Margaret Dumont as one of the greatest straight women ever. All right. Oh, go on.
No, I said to that, like, surprising why it wasn't a hit. Weirdness doesn't, just kind of unrestrained weirdness didn't seem to catch on in film. The other thing I can think that comes to mind is the Hell's Poppin' that was made in the 40s, which is even more extreme in terms of just being totally surreal. That's kind of been like a cult item. If you get a chance to see that, try to find it. It's as good, if not better, than Duck Soup even. So
it's
I think, isn't Hell's a Poppin' on the listing, I believe.
Yep.
So
there's kind of Hell's a Poppin', this one, and W.C. Fields is there's a Never Give a Sucker, and even in my mind they're like a trilogy of like wartime fascist absurdist comedy movies that they're all great and kind of at least a little bit weird. And Duck Soup kind of probably should be in the apocryphally weird category if I ever get around to it. But it belongs there. And it's like the last 20 minutes are really, really pretty strange. But all right, well, I'll tell you what, let's stop right here, and we will be back for us in about 20 minutes, and for you in no time at all with Cory McAbee. And see you then. Thanks. And hello, we're back as promised with Cory McAbee, who should be to my left, and Robert Hubbard, who is now below me. And Robert is probably going to take most of the questioning, and we're going to, so first off, most of you probably know Cory McAbee from The American Astronaut, which is a movie we have featured prominently as one of the 366 weirdest movies of all time. And
thank you.
We will talk about that, and then we're going to get into his new project, which is Deep Astronomy and the Romantic Sciences, and we'll find out about that, and also about what Captain Ahabs Motorcycle Club is. And there were some other projects in between American Astronaut and this latest stuff. Oh, also we will ask about a mysterious new screenplay. Maybe he can't tell us anything about it. So.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you everything. I got no secrets.
All right.
Yeah.
I do hope that the final product will be named New Screenplay, and that's not just a holding title.
Well, I might get talked into that at some point.
At any rate. So just to start out, I'm just going to ask a quick question about The American Astronaut to satisfy my own curiosity, and then I'll turn most of the questioning over to Robert. But I was wondering, what scene do you get asked about the most? Because I'm wondering if it's the same scene I'm thinking of.
It's usually the Hey Boys scene,
Oh.
the dance in the bathroom. That's a lot of people's favorite moment, or the one that sticks out more to some people. I think that one probably got more traction as a single clip on YouTube, and that's what drew a lot of people into it. Yeah, that, and people always ask, what happened between Professor Hess and Samuel Curtis. Things that I never talk about. By the way, I feel I haven't seen myself like this. I've got a big beard.
Yeah.
I just let it go for the past month or two, thinking, oh, let it grow for. You think so? I don't know. I haven't seen it on screen before. This is really, it's kind of odd looking. It's kind of like the first time I shaved my head, I didn't recognize my own shadow. It's just for holidays. It's holiday dressing.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, either your hair grows really fast, or there's an invention called a mirror you could look into.
I'm trying to wean myself from that invention. It tells me too many stories.
Those are great scenes.
Perfect answer. Perfect.
The scene I was thought you might get the most questions about, or inquiries about, that the Hey Boy scene I can see because it's on YouTube, and also I do think it's probably the catchiest single from the movie. I was thinking of the long Hertz donut monologue.
Oh, Tom, I love that joke. When I wrote that, everybody who read the screenplay said, "Oh, I really like the screenplay. You got to get rid of this joke." I remember Stuart Stern was one of my advisors at a workshop at the Sundance Screenwriters Workshop in 1990 something, and he's the one. He wrote Rebel Without a Cause and the TV Sybil. He wrote a lot of things, but anyway, he gave me back my screenplay with all these notes written all over it, and they were just beautiful and interesting. But that one joke just next to it, he wrote, "I don't know how you expect anybody to sit through this long sadistic monologue." And so when everybody's like, "Oh, you got to get rid of that," just make it like a one-liner or something. I was like, no, it's got to be this thing, And then we brought in people to audition for it, and it was just torture watching people tell that joke. And I would make everybody do it twice, because I figured if I couldn't sit through it twice, then nobody else could. And then Tom Aldridge came in and read for it, and just was everything that I thought this thing was supposed to be when I wrote it. You know, he I mean, he even looked like my grandfather in the shirt that I dressed him as. I was kind of styled him after my grandfather, and he just nailed it. And that joke is something where that's sort of the test. You can, like, there's a chemistry to each audience. You know, every audience is different, and they respond to not just the film differently, but to each other differently. And so hello, there's food coming through. So anytime that joke comes on, I'll just sit and listen. I mean, usually if it's screening, I'll sit through the whole thing just to listen to the audience to see how they react to everything. But that joke, you can always tell what an audience is going to be like. And I remember one time we showed it in Manhattan, and it was the same night, a 7:00 screening and a 9:00 screening. The 7:00 screening, basically that joke got a standing ovation. The 9:00 screening, everybody sat uncomfortably hoping it would end soon. So that's the test for that film for me, is how people respond to that. That was a long story. Yeah. And food came through. Everything happened.
All right.
Was that Willa?
No, that's my wife, Amy.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess from that should probably get into from American Astronaut, which you may come back to, but what you're doing now, which is this deep astronomy and the romantic sciences, which since I follow you on Facebook, I've been reading about the past few years, and reading the description of it, it seems so simple. Reading it, the premise is very simple, and yet when I've tried to explain it to Greg, I seem to kind of get lost and convoluted. But
I have a hard time explaining that one too.
You could go, if you could kind of tell us what it's about.
Well, actually, when you were making the introduction earlier, you brought up Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club. Can I start with that?
Perfect. Yes. Okay.
Well, Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club. At one point I wanted to make a film. I didn't have any funding sources or anything like that, so I wanted to make a film that was yay. I wanted to make a film that was because there was no funding, and also because I'd worked with people for years that whenever people would say, you know, hey, when you come through our town, you know, come stay at our house or we'll make you dinner or something. And everyone was like, no, I don't want to do that, you know. And I always kind of wanted to. So I hit a point where I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to basically just say yes to everybody and take everybody up on their offers and try to make a global collaborative art project. And it started off with graphic design. In fact, the reason I chose the name Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club was I thought it opened itself up to a lot of
possibilities,
opportunity. Yeah, a lot of possibilities. It was pregnant with possibilities. And so
I have to say that, like, with Captain Ahab and Motorcycle Club are sort of things that I think will kind of like really kind of make things fruitful, because they don't normally go together in the way of thinking. But
yeah, it created its own aesthetic, and people all over the world made their own chapter patches for their cities, and there was all sorts of artwork for it. And I didn't know what I was doing. I've never done this before. There was no map. It was all, you know, just rolling with the punches. And so then I thought, well, we should have live events. So what I did was I recorded a bunch of songs that were very simple pieces with a friend of mine, Matt Cowan. And we recorded these songs together, just auto harp and keyboards and, you know, hands clapping and stuff. And I would go out and I would sing to these recordings. And I told people they could download these recordings. They could download each individual track. They could make their own tracks. I wanted everyone to make their own mixes, and as long as my scratch vocal, which they could download separately, fit their track, I should be able to download it and perform it on stage that night.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went out on tour, and at first I was just recording or performing to my own recordings. And then I went to Australia, and they had other bands perform with me doing their interpretation. So that was fun. And then I did a 2-month tour across the US with that one guy, and we played 6 nights a week. And halfway through the tour, I started getting slammed with recordings. And it was great. It was really great. And I learned a lot. One thing I learned was that I don't know anything. You know, there was certain points where like there was this one song which had this very like triumphant like rum ta ta dun ta ta dun thing, and I'd be on stage going, "You made your," you know, very, you know, bold and loud. And people who were sending me tracks for that were same thing, like run ta ta dun ta ta dun. And this one gentleman, I'll say his name because I was so excited by what he did. His name was Gabe Petrie. He's part of Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club. And at the time, he wasn't living anywhere. And he had his stuff in storage. And so he somehow made this track, and it was totally different. It had like foghorns and went bloop, 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 bloop. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to perform to this? You know, like I couldn't find a beat or anything. So I got on stage, and I just, you know, because I wanted to honor everything everybody sent me. And so I got on stage and just did my best, just laid into it as hard as I could. And that one guy comes up to me afterwards and goes, are you going to do that again tomorrow? That was intense. And I said, yeah. He goes, every time you perform to that track, I want to watch, because that was just amazing. And so then a couple from Stuttgart, Germany contacted me and said, we love this track. We want to use it for an animated piece. And so it just kind of took on a life of its own. And the thing is, if I was in the room when he was recording that track, I would have been going, no. It must be like, but instead, he did something totally out of the blue, sent it in, and I used it, and it kind of blossomed and became its own item. And so I learned a lot through this process. So anyway, Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club. So now I got the graphics, I got the music. All right, I mean, a live, you know, event component. And I thought, all right, well, we need a film. So I wanted to make a film about Abraham Lincoln's embalmer. Yeah. And
which I remember seeing it was announced, and that sounded very intriguing.
It's an interesting story. I mean, you know, they put him in a train and took him around the country for 2.5 weeks. And he wasn't sitting too pretty. You know, he got bad reviews by the press, and, you know, and if you've got like hundreds of thousands of people lining up to walk past his body close by, and you're the person in charge of it, and it starts to decay, and it's this brand new science, you know, there's some tension, there's some drama. So I thought it was an interesting story. But it proved to be a bad match for the collaborative, for the Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club collaborative. While that was becoming apparent, I was asked to go perform at a festival in Poland, and I wanted to do this performance, but I didn't, and they were going to pay me, and I thought, okay, well, and they were going to pay me, you know, well, which nobody does.
Always good.
It always is good if it should ever happen. And so I thought, well, I can't use Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club music to do this because that's other people's work, and I'm not going to get paid for it, and, you know, like there's no way to divvy it up and all that. So I'll do something new. So I wrote the Small Star Seminar, and I went and performed that. Immediately, people from Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club started making artwork for the Small Star Seminar. And whenever I go do performances, people would film the performances and give me the footage after the shows. And I'm like, okay, this is organic, you know, so let's just follow this and see what happens. So I started weaving in science lectures, and and eventually it just became science lectures after a while.
Well, I can recall like going back through that material, because I think at that time you started following the Monarch migrations.
Right. Well, actually, that happened. That all kind of came together with the Lincoln thing. I was working with a lot of people who worked in the Green Burial movement, and then in 2013, I played a singing cowboy in a documentary for German television, where we followed the monarch butterfly migration from Chicago down to Michoacan, Mexico. And to do that, I had to basically learn everything I could about butterflies, and have been continuing to learn about butterflies. And so when COVID started, I'll come back to the movie in a minute, but when COVID started, I was locked down, and I was, kind of getting involved in green burial, the information about that. So I started just going on the phone and reaching out to organic cemeteries, green burial grounds, and conservation cemeteries, and talking to them about replenishing the milkweed and the native wildflowers on some of their properties to help the monarch migration go back and forth from Canada to Mexico. And it was an easy pitch, who doesn't want butterflies at their funerals? And so, and I didn't get anything out of it other than, doing this. And I also worked with universities. I just got back from Birmingham, Alabama, where their sustainability department was one of the first people to work with me, and they've got all these butterfly gardens all over their university now. So a couple of years ago, I decided I'd like to go visit these cemeteries and follow the monarch butterfly migration down the East Coast. There's a small migration that goes down the East Coast. And I've never driven or ridden a motorcycle or done anything on the road. And I never had a bike except for when I was a little kid, and it was a piece of garbage. So I thought, well, I'd like to ride a bike from Maine to Florida and follow the migration path. So 2 years ago, I got a bike, learned how to ride it. And last year I rode from Maine to Florida and followed the migration path. And I brought stickers. I made stickers. I gave them to everybody, every man, woman, and child, in every parking lot, in every gas station, everywhere, and just talked about butterflies the whole trip, and just had the best time. It was amazing. So,
it seems like with the bike, because I noticed on the page that you still do the biking. What I was about to say is that during COVID, and you started doing the lectures.
Yep.
And sort of like I assume like sort of incorporating some of the knowledge that you picked up. I remember the Red Planet Planning Commission, which has a site and which had the pitch, basically a way to terraform Mars. But also I just was going through that stuff last night. Some interesting things about embalming, which I assume kind of came through when you were looking at researching the embalmer, and some other like scientifically valid concepts, and presenting them in sort of like this corporate set, almost kind of a corporate infomercial. But it made the concepts very relatable and understandable. And actually, I guess with that, there's that, and also cultured cell culture. And I guess you had that coming up as something as factual functional fiction, which is sort of like you take like all these concepts and then put them in these narratives to understand. And I found it fascinating. I've heard some of those concepts, and I know sort of the persona. It's almost sort of like Swifty. It's almost sort of Swiftian. Some of the ideas. So you're not so it's sort of like, well, it's a valid idea, but but I guess if you were going to kind of like put it out there, so their reaction is going to be like, oh my God, what? So you degenerate. And yet this way kind of like enables them to kind of like lay out the case and kind of say, okay, there's some valid science behind it, and not get into other aspects that might make people kick.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that kind of inspired that, was seeing these these guys who are just geniuses in their field talking about things that make absolute perfect sense, and then at the end try to sell you face cream or something like that, you know. And so I started watching that, you know, and I used that as an example, and just made these as a form of entertainment. They grew out of the Small Star Seminar because I was performing to recordings. I would have a 3-minute blank in between before the last song where I would try to improvise science lectures, and then, you know, the last song would just pop on in the middle, and I'd stop and start singing. And then I started making PowerPoint presentations that had the songs in them, and
they come on.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's from Frankfurt, Germany. That performance. That was a real fun night. So then I started getting into it, like the Cultured Cell Culture performance. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. It's a half-hour animated film that I lecture and sync to, and that whole idea is selling cruelty-free cannibalism,
cannibalism,
the human species.
Like,
Yeah. You know, actually, my lectures and a lot of that stuff, I'm self-publishing a book. Nobody's seen it.
Which I was going to mention. You have a book coming out, I think, next week called Three-Dimensional Losers.
You're the first person to say it. Yeah, Three-Dimensional Losers. Yeah, I ordered a copy and it was totally messed up, so I had to design it and send it back in. And, you know, I'm going to get a copy tomorrow and take a look at it. But, you know, if somebody buys it, they're going to get a maybe a copy in flux. We'll see.
So is that like a collection of this lecture material that you've been doing the last few years? Or
yeah, it's got the lectures, it's got some illustrations, it's got finale in it. I don't know if you ever, during COVID, I did this performance about a clown that was genetically a clown, and has copper-based blood as opposed to iron-based blood. And so the the tagline is, you know, when a clown gives his life for yours, the least you could do is smile. And so it's so finale's in there. You know, I want to get that out. And yeah, so Three-Dimensional Losers. I also, that script that I just wrote, I'm kind of thinking about maybe, I don't know, I'll see how I like having a book out there. Maybe instead of pursuing a film first, put the screenplay out. Just let people get the screenplay to see if people enjoy reading the screenplay.
Well, I know we should be talking about the movie, but just a couple things I wanted to kind of get out before that. I seem to recall reading you also wrote an opera.
Yeah, that the opera, that's a movie that will never be made, and it's the most money I ever made off of anything I've ever done. 2 companies came on and like supported me while I developed the opera. It was based on an 1850s melodrama, and one company I worked with just couldn't really kind of get in sync, and they would give me a lot of suggestions and notes, and I was like, I couldn't do anything with them. And I thought, wow, I'm really a jerk, man. These people are trying to help this, and I'm just not cooperating. But then I started working with another company that saw the film totally differently, and their notes, I was like, oh yeah, this is fun. You know, it was like a chess game, just hearing what they had to say and trying to kind of reconstruct some of the character ideas. So
I'm sorry. So it would be like a filmed opera, or rather than being staged live, or
yeah, it was supposed to be a film, but the people who were backing it eventually went a different direction. So there it sits on somebody else's shelf. But I got paid while I wrote it, so that was a really nice surprise. So real quickly, back to Deep Astronomy and the Romantic Sciences. That was birthed from Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club, and Red Planet Planning Commission came from the story of that. Now, what happened was I ended up having all this artwork and some animation and different footage from all these performances, and the performances were all concerts and science lectures. And I didn't want to make a road film, and I couldn't figure out how to write a screenplay to incorporate this stuff, because every time I tried to write it, I kept writing the same story over and over again, and it wasn't very good. And so then I decided at one point, I thought, well, what's the opposite of what I would do? Let's do the exact opposite of what I would do. And I thought, all right, whatever's popular is the opposite of what I would do. And I thought, all right, well, what's popular right now? And I looked about at everything I'd been seeing, and I thought, okay, lady robots, female robots are very popular. So I'm going to write about a female robot. And then I thought, well, who do I like? And there was this young gentleman who I kept seeing at the corner at the liquor store. Every now and then we'd talk, and in his early 20s, a hip hop artist. And every time we'd see each other, we'd just stand on the corner and talk for like an hour or two. And I thought, I like Rudy. So I'm going to write a story about Rudy, this guy who I see sometimes, and a robot. And I did. And then I got so into the idea of Rudy being this character. I saw him one day and I said, you don't know me that well, but I wrote a story about you, and it's a screenplay. And I said, you ever act? He goes, no. I said, but you're a performer. You're a hip hop artist. He goes, yeah. I said, would you be interested in reading this part? I mean, basically it's written for you. And he said, yeah. And he read it, and he was great. He was perfect. So there's a lot about Rudy and Grace. There's an EP called Rudy and Grace with 3 songs, and it tied in, it wove together all this material. It's a very different kind of narrative, this film, but it also comes from a very different place.
In terms of just like reading the synopsis about it, and it seems that it's a story about kind of a meetup in a bar that eventually kind of turns into a trial for humanity.
Yeah.
Is that a kind of a accurate? Okay.
Yeah, no, it was good.
Okay. But I'm intrigued. Like I said, I'm very intrigued by it. I guess on the site it says that it'll be premiering on YouTube on December the 5th.
No, it'll be on Vimeo. But I'm going to post it on the website. The website has Captain Ahab's Motorcycle Club, Red Planet Planning Commission. It's redplanetplanningcommission.com. But what I'm doing is, I was thinking I wanted to do whatever's best for the film, and so I put it in a couple of festivals. It really was not. It's an interesting film. Audiences love it. Every time I played it for sold out rooms, and the audiences love it. They stick around for an hour-long Q&A afterwards. It's been great. But selection committees at festivals don't seem to light up to it too much. But though it did play at Sci-Fi London, and had a wonderful time, and it played at the Portland Eco Film Fest in Portland, Oregon. And that was, again, sold out screening. Everybody, really, really enjoyed it. So what I'm going to do now is basically give it back to everybody who built it. It's going to belong to all of us, and put it out there for free. I'm going to encourage people to use the stuff that they've created to make other things, or to share it, because a lot of stuff didn't end up in the film, of course, but having it as an option helped forge the film. So I see it all as a part of the film.
Okay. Well, to that, is that since it's going to be available on the website, would say like during the next year or so, depending on your schedule, is it something where you would make appearance if like festivals or something did want to play it? Would you like appear with it, or is that like a viable?
No, if a festival wanted to play it, I'd say heck yeah. I want everyone to show it everywhere. And I want everybody who worked on it I want everybody who worked on it to share it, and I also want anybody who likes it to share it. And I know that I opened it up to a group of young people, and they've watched it several times and have shared it with their friends and family. So I'm hoping that a lot of people feel that way about it. It's very different. It's a different, like I said, it's a different kind of narrative. it had different it had a different agenda from the beginning.
So these things that have been incorporated, so there are, like, I gather there's animation that some people did and it got incorporated into the film. There are these lectures which remind me of TED Talks. I don't know if that's what they're intended to be, but
Sure.
that's what I thought of. And then there's a framing narrative. And then I think there like little sculptures and things that are put into the sets, or?
Yeah, there was a couple of sculptures. One gentleman, oh, sorry, I can't think offhand. Sorry. He sent some sculptures, and so we decorated the set with those. There was a crew that drove out. It was the stuff with Rudy and Grace was shot at the Slipper Room here in Manhattan, and they let us borrow their club during the day. And wonderful film crew drove out from Birmingham, Alabama, and shot the main glue of the film here with Rudy and Grace, and some other actors came in from California to be a part of it. And it was really, it added a few inches to my optimistic side. I tell you, seeing the kindness and generosity rolling off of people, and also, to make it, I went on tour and I didn't have any money and I don't know how to drive. So people would pick me up and drive me from city to city and let me stay at their homes. And I made that part of the film too. So it was just, it was just relying on kindness.
And so another thing I guess that's incorporated is your musical performances, which are the part collaborations, but written by you, and those are also incorporated into this big stew.
Yeah, the performance, the musical performances were from the Small Star seminars, and those, different people filmed them in different locations, and so there's like a whole slew of cinematographers for that stuff. It wasn't there. I didn't end up using a musical collaboration in the film itself. I used the collaboration to help construct the identity of the collaborative. But I also didn't know how to deal with other people's music legally. That's kind of that would have gotten that would have been outside of my field of expertise, is trying to figure out how to negotiate that stuff. So I just figured, okay, well, it's all, I'll just make it myself and make it quick.
Well, again, since also on the website it says with the collective that the motorcycle club is again active.
Yes.
Do you see I guess not too much detail, but like more collaborative, more Captain that you have motorcycle club collaborations coming down the pike that we can look forward to?
Well, what I want is I want everybody to be able to get some credit for the things they've done all the way from the beginning, and that would be, if somebody wanted to have a small screening and charge a cover, they could. If they if somebody wanted to make t-shirts out of their artwork, please do. If somebody shot some footage and it didn't end up in the film, they could make a clip, make their own clip, even if I'm in it, and just put it out there. Just feel free to make things. And I don't have any real hard plans. I never have really for this whole project. I'm just rolling with it and seeing what happens. But when something does spark like become something and needs like a little push in one direction or another, that that's what I do. Is try to guide things that seem like they're going to be successful, not successful, like how we say successful, but the project itself,
I see we're kind of pressed for time. I wish we had more time because there's way more to ask you. But before we leave, I do have to bring this up. There are still big fans of the American Astronaut and Stingray Sam. is that what's the situation of that? Is there any
I don't
chance of
I don't really own them. They're
okay,
more in
right.
the property of the people who finance them at this point. So
Okay.
we're not really in touch with each other. So I don't really have any say in that at the moment. So but hopefully people will find them and keep watching them and sharing them. And in the meantime, I'll just keep moving forward and making new things.
Well, I have a American Astronaut DVD, fortunately, so that's why you get physical media, kids.
Yeah.
Have it for
and CD soundtrack. There's still
well,
there's a lot of material out there, boys and girls. So you gotta dig for it.
Yeah.
we are running out of time. We have a little over 2 minutes, and there are a couple things I wanted to get in at the last bit. First, what like website is the most important for people to go to follow what's coming up?
redplanetplanningcommission.com.
Okay.
redplanetplanningcommission.com now houses deep astronomy and the romantic sciences, the cultured cell culture, redplanetplanningcommission.com itself, and that's where we'll be watching deep astronomy and the romantic sciences, and also cultured cell culture. They can find stuff there for that. And it's growing. It's going to be a growing website. redplanetplanningcommission.com is where everything will end up.
All right, so that's the clearinghouse. That's good. And the other question is, I think you have dinner ready, but so if you can quickly,
Not at this point.
we typically ask a closing question as to what is your hometown and can you recommend a restaurant there? So if you can think of one in a minute, we can get it.
Well, I live in New York. When people come to town, I always tell them to meet me for breakfast at a place called Joe Jr.'s in Manhattan, and on 3rd Street and 3rd Avenue, 3rd and 15th. Joe Jr.'s. I like to meet people for breakfast because I drink coffee and start to vibrate, and the conversation goes a lot quicker than having cocktails.
Excellent.
And you get to eat eggs.
Yeah. Excellent. So we got it in, and someday we're going to do I think a compilation of all the restaurant recommendations, just like once we get 30 minutes worth of them, we'll just do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. We talked about things nobody knew.
No, good to see you again. I hope to see you again in the near future. And I'll be watching for Deep Astronomy here in the next when it premieres in the next few weeks. So
yeah, well, good to see you again too.
So hopefully, if things work out, could try to bring you to Lawrence. Could try to bring you around to Lawrence for.
I would love that. We can have a screening.
Yeah,
we can do stuff. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to say goodbye. Next